we'd like to welcome you to our current event and weekly Bible study for January 20th, 2015. I've been upgrading my recording equipment some, and so I'm a little bit late getting this teaching out, just trying to get everything set there. And today's study, we're going to really be keen on topics that all relate to one another. First thing that we're going to be talking about, the report is entitled Obama to Host Global Extremism Summit, Tyranny on the Menu. And we're going to relate all of these subjects to the Muslim agenda, to other things that have been predicted for over 100 years regarding World War III, and how Islam will be used in the end times to foment World War III, and how that is all being set up right now in order for that to happen. So this report starts out by saying, following the deadly Charlie Hebdo terror attacks in Paris last week, the Obama administration set a date for its global summit on dealing with extremism. However, the conclave will not be focusing on Western and Arab governments, support for extreme jihadists in Libya, Syria, and beyond, or the extreme gun control schemes that left French citizens defenseless in the face of terrorism last week, or on extreme anti-free speech policies purporting to ban criticism of Islam published by the United Nations, the European, and the socialist French government. Instead, the White House Extremism Summit will focus primarily on expanding the power of governments and international bureaucracies, including further censorship of the internet, under the guise of waging a more vigorous war on terror. So in other words, everything that they should be focusing on regarding Islam, regarding gun control schemes that left the French citizens defenseless, all of these things they should have been focusing on, they're not, obviously, because they're putting them in place for that exact reason, to create the problem so that they can come in with their Hegelian dialectic synthesis solution, which in this case will be further expanding the power of governments and international bureaucracies, and further censorship of the internet. So Obama's outgoing Attorney General Eric Holder, currently in criminal contempt of Congress for instigating the extreme policy for arming Mexican drug cartels to justify gun control and then trying to cover it up, announced February 18th on the Summit on Countering Violent Extremism over the weekend following Charlie Hebdo attack that, quote, "we will bring together all of our allies to discuss ways in which we can counteract this violent extremism that exists around the world." Holder told reporters he did not say whether counteracting violent extremism would include an end to the U.S. taxpayer-funded weapons shipments and training for Islamic extremists and terrorists, which we basically were the ones, our government were the ones that got ISIS off the ground, trained them, armed them, equipped them, and just got that old satanic ball rolling right down that satanic bowling alley. And so, again, we create the problem, the government, the New World Order creates the problem, and then, gives you its solution in the end, which is always the taking away of more liberties. So, going further, however, the White House indicated that the gathering next month would focus on other matters. This likely means continuing and expanding efforts, which the New American reported on late last year, to further empower the dictator-dominated and terror-linked United Nations, the controversial international law enforcement agency, also known as Interpol, and more. Radical Islam and jihad were never mentioned in the administration's announcements about the summit. However, in the official documents, the federal government in recent years has regularly and repeatedly identified pro-lifers, veterans, states' right activists, constitutionalists, libertarians, people concerned about illegal immigration, national sovereignty supporters, and those reverent of individual liberty, individuals who are suspicious of centralized authority, and others, like Bible-believing Christians, as potentially dangerous and the violent extremists. So anybody that falls into that category, which would pretty much be, I would say, most of us, I mean, not all of us are veterans, Not all of us are libertarians. I mean, I wouldn't advise that, but I'm just saying a lot of those things, obviously, a lot of my listeners would stand for. We're the ones that are the violent extremists, even though we don't go around firebombing, innocent people and blowing up people and strapping nail bombs to little children to have them run into cafes and kill people. And we don't, we're not doing all that stuff. But we're the bad guys, though. The good guys are the Muslims, because obviously they're puritanical. I mean, just look at the wonderful fruit that they produce daily around the globe. And so, this is the absolute total insane world we find ourselves in. Last year, the Obama Defense Department was even exposed teaching U.S. troops that evangelical Christians, Catholics, Orthodox Jews, and others were, quote, the extremists, alongside of terror groups such as Al-Qaeda and Hamas. So at least we got equal billing there, with the Al-Qaeda and Hamas. Details about the upcoming White House Extremism Summit remain scarce, and information about which governments, dictatorships, and self-styled transnational authorities might participate has not been yet released. However, numerous officials have offered some hints as to what the event is likely to focus on. The Obama administration, for example, speaking in vague generalities, indicated that in its extremism strategy extremism strategy involved confronting extremism in individual neighborhoods by integrating social services, education, mental health, religion, and law enforcement into a giant hammer to seek out and destroy, quote, extremism wherever it may be found. Now, this is not in reference to Islamic extremism, which their whole goal in fundamental Islam, and this is what the Quran teaches and their other unholy writings, is world domination, a world Islamic caliphate, the whole world under Sharia law. I mean, that's the most radical form of extremism on the planet, but that's not what this is going to include. This is going to be going after the extremism of those people that I just mentioned, the group that many of us fall into. Okay, so I think what they're talking about here when it says individual neighborhoods by integrating social services, education, mental health, religion. They're going to use Obamacare. They're going to use religion. They're going to use social services, neighborhoods. They want a whole army of little, basically rats, snitches, whatever you want to call them, that will go in and identify the bad extremists, the bigoted extremists that exist in a particular neighborhood. None of them will be Islam. None of them, if you represent anything wicked or evil, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, or if you're a pornographer, or if you're an illegal alien here illegally, or Islam, none of them will fall under that banner. No, it will just be the people that were mentioned earlier that I talked about. Those will be the ones that they're going to go after, because those are the true enemy of the New World Order. Other governments almost certain to participate have also offered clues about where the emerging global war on extremism is headed. French Interior Minister Bernard Cazeneuve, I don't know, whatever, unveiled a long list of new big government plans to stamp out extremism that entail cracking down further on free speech and free inquiry. We need to work more closely with the internet companies to guarantee the reporting and, if possible, removal of all illegal content that amounts to a call for terrorism or calls for violence and hatred. Well, why wouldn't you? I mean, Islam has that in spades everywhere you look. Behead the infidel, kill them, slay them, annihilate them. There's a link a listener sent me, he did some Google search, and I mean, it was all the rallies that they've had and all the signs that they hold up. It's all, I mean, talk about hate and calling for violence and hatred and death and evil. In fact, let me just look that up real quick just so I can read some of these. Okay, so these are just, I'm just going to read some of the signs I'm looking at. These are actual Islam. I give you a link to this a little bit later on. Sharia for the Netherlands. Islam will be superior. Islam will dominate the world. I mean, these people look like they're just all demon-possessed, foaming at the mouth, rabid devil dogs. I mean, sorry, I don't mean to sugarcoat it so much, but I mean, that's pretty much the impression you get. And then look at the fruit. Sharia, the true solution. Freedom, go to HELL. Sharia, the only solution. Burn in hell, yelled the infamous 5. There's 5. I love it how they're really not wanting to impose their will on anyone. I mean, that's pretty obvious. Could you imagine if there was any sect of Christianity that was marching in the streets doing this? I mean, that would be absolute front page news worldwide, across the globe, worldwide condemnation. But Islam can do this all day long, and they get a free pass, you know, because they're the religion of peace. Sharia will dominate the world. I mean, how obvious and in your face can you make this? So you have to understand, this is their stated goal, and they're willing to die for it, and they're not going anywhere. And, you know, so this is not like a problem that's just going to go away on its own. British police, go to HELL. Jihad will continue until the day of judgment. Yeah, you better fear the day of judgment there, devil boy. They're showing, I don't know what they're doing. Are they lopping off heads? Anyway, shows these people. I mean, these people are so demon-possessed to the toenails. It's just, there's just page after page of this. So, that's nice. All in favor of Sharia law, raise your hand. And it shows 5 hands that were cut off on some kind of Islamic flag. And considering Obama was raised a Muslim and is a Muslim, it's no wonder why Islam has been afforded such an amazing amount of growth and protection since he's been in office. I'm not giving Bush a pass either, but since he's been in office, man, there has never been a time in America where this devil death cult from the pit of hell has ever prospered like it is now. So let's go a little bit further here, and let me find my place where we were at. Okay, so getting back to where I left off here, we were talking about the French Interior Minister who unveiled a long list of big government plans to stamp out extremism. That entail cracking down on free speech and free inquiry. You know, it's just what we need, a little bit more cracking down on free speech so you can't say anything about Islam. Islam can say anything they want. Okay, they're held to a totally different standard. They can do and say whatever they want. And whenever they feel slighted or insulted, it's fine for them to go and kill and behead and slay. And they don't even need that as an excuse. I mean, just you being an infidel is enough excuse for that, and that's just a non-believer in Islam. So, he's talking about we need to work more closely with internet companies. See, internet is one of the last great bastions of where this type of information, where the counteracting of all of the media, mass media, brainwashing, New World Order, global bias is counteracted. It's primarily done through the internet. I understand you can say shortwave and stuff, but most people don't listen to shortwave. And if they can take out the internet, then they will really have almost total control over the alternative media will be stamped out literally pretty much overnight. To a large extent. So this is why they're really saying, oh, we need to look at the internet companies to guarantee the reporting and, if possible, removal of all illegal content. That amounts to a call for terrorism or calls for violence or hatred. See, a call for terrorism or for violence or for hatred, that Islam does it all day long. But if a Christian or anyone in any religion for that matter speaks out against Islam, that's what that's considered. Because you can't insult the pedophile Muhammad, who his favorite wife was Aisha, who he married at the age of 6 and supposedly consummated the marriage at 9. But I saw something the other day that there's this caveat in Islam, and it's so disgusting, but it's a, put it this way, it's a workaround for that whole, consummating the marriage at 9. It's a workaround for that. It's perverted, it's perverse, and I'm not going to get into it, but it's there. It's there. So I have no doubt that he was in some way, shape, or form having his way with her at 6. And hey, he's the guy they all look up to. He's the devil. I wish we could go to hell right now. I wish that all the devil Muslims in Islam could get about, 15 minutes in hell with Muhammad. I think that would change a lot of minds. I really do. I really think that a lot of them would probably end up getting saved. As demon-possessed as they are, I do think that a lot of them would end up getting saved. Hopefully. I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure how God views it. I mean, these people are so evil and so wicked. I can't imagine doing what they do. Talk about having your conscience seared with a hot iron or being turned over to a reprobate mind. I mean, they're the quintessential poster boys for that concept. And poster women, because a lot of the women are really, radically sick in the head too. Not all. I understand a lot of them are, they're born into it. They don't have any choice. And trust me, I've been defending the women in Islam for a long time, but a lot of them don't want to be defended, And a lot of them, like it just as much as the men, what they're doing. So then it goes on to say, he explained, he also proposed a new global travel regime to put in place better control on certain passengers, along with more tools for tracking surveillance of people worldwide. So, in other words, if you have any history in their eyes of speaking out against Islam or inciting hate, then you know what? You need to be monitored. You might be on a no-fly list. Oh, you had that internet site that said things we don't like. Well, number one, your internet site's gone. Your content's all gone. And who knows? I mean, you didn't vote for Satan. You didn't promote our satanic agenda. So, now you get to go to jail. I don't know where it's all going to end. So fellow EU governments have also offered some strong hints about the emerging war on extremism that the establishment is pushing, exploiting many of the problems it helped foment. In October, UK Prime Minister David Cameron called for the UN to lead a global battle against what he called non-violent extremism. Oh, really? Non-violent. So that would be mostly, I would say, people, let's say internet alternative watchmen, anybody speaking out in any kind of logical, moral fashion. But see, that would be that classification. Violent extremism is fine. It's the non-violent we really need to go after, because obviously the violent is fine. Cameron, according to Cameron, waging war on violent extremism is no longer enough. A global war on unapproved opinions and beliefs must be carried out also. If you question the government narrative about terror attacks, such as the one that occurred on September 11th, which was a total farce, just key in loose change 9/11 on the internet, if you believe in the 9/11 official narrative that, they fed us, or believe in religious prophecies about the end times, or dispute the legitimacy of your rulers, or hold any sort of views that politicians consider extremist, watch out. Watch out. Because the big boogeyman's coming for you. More recently, but you know who's coming for them in the end? The Lord Jesus Christ. And when they're cast into hell and then the lake of fire, that's what they have to look forward to. They're the ones that should be fearing, is the reality. A Christian, if he dies, absent from the body, is to be present with the Lord. Okay, but these guys have nothing to look forward to but hell. And the more wickedness they commit on this planet in their lifetime, the worse the punishment will be in hell and the lake of fire. So, going further, more recently, UK authorities unveiled yet another extreme scheme under the guise of fighting extremism. The conscription of nannies, nursery school workers, and kindergarten teachers in the war to ferret out toddlers with the potential to become extreme at some point in the future. Now, I think what that really means is ferreting out the toddlers that maybe have any kind of bent that their parents would have so that they can get to the parents. To use the toddlers as spies on the parents. Obama has similar plans involving the use of government schools. Regarding the internet, Cameron also declared that Google, Facebook, Twitter, and other companies have a responsibility to take down extreme and harmful material while ensuring that the World Wide Web does not remain an ungoverned space. Again, you speak out against Islam, that's what they want to go after. Even though it's all factual, it's all based in fact, it's like, okay, here's the, 1 billion pound gorilla in the room. We're just going to point it out. It happens to be called Islam. Okay? But don't you dare speak out against it, or you're bigoted racist and you're not ungoverned. It's hate speech. Well, I guess it's better for us to all remain silent and let them butcher, rape, kill, and do whatever they want to do under the name of Islam. That's much more merciful. And less hateful, too. So, top non-governmental globalists have chimed in with the politicians as well as demanding further attacks on liberty under the guise of fighting extremism and terror. Global government promoting Council on Foreign Relations boss Richard Haass wasted no time in declaring on Twitter that humanity must surrender what little remains of individual privacy for the cause of collective security. I mean, here it is. I mean, this is what they want. They want no more individual privacy. Why? For the cause of collective security. Because Satan knows best. Don't we all know that by now? He knows best what's best for us. He's not a cruel taskmaster. He's a fun guy. He would never hurt any of us. Okay? Because that's basically Satan talking there, is what I'm in reference to. Ironically, in 2012, the CFR was openly celebrating al-Qaeda's crucial role in the establishment-backed regime change machinations underway in Syria. Before that, the Obama administration, with strong globalist support, armed and backed actual al-Qaeda leaders in the overthrow of the Libyan strongman Muammar Gaddafi. See, like I had said, all of these regime changes that have taken place in the Middle East, they have... the global governments, with America being right there at the top of the list, have funded these regime changes to take out these long-standing dictators who were not radical enough, who would not play ball with the New World Order, so they could insert their more radicalized Islamic puppet dictators who at the right time will be unleashed in regard to the starting of World War III. These other countries weren't radicalized enough. They couldn't have that. They weren't controlled. Muammar Gaddafi didn't want to be controlled. I'm not saying he was a great guy, but listen, that was that was just one more scam that was pulled under the guise of, we had to get him out of there or whatever. If you really start to look at that one in particular. Just here at home, the Obama Justice Department has been a hotbed of fast and furious extremism in recent years. Last year, it was exposed working with the extremist Southern Poverty Law Center in targeting Americans for their political views. Last month, it was criticized for funding a group linked to an extremist rap video glorifying and encouraging the murder of police officers. See, they're doing all this stuff. They're the ones causing the race wars. They're the ones that are arming ISIS and Al-Qaeda and these types of things in order to bring about their controlled change, their order out of chaos, which is the 33rd degree Freemasonic motto. This is what this is all about. We're going to get to that a little bit more later on the Freemasons, how that works into this. Before that, Attorney General Holder came under fire for an extremist DOJ memo purporting to legally justify the assassination of anyone on Earth via drone strike, including Americans, merely on the president's orders, without criminal charges, a trial, a jury, or even a semblance of respect for due process rights. So, anything goes, basically, is the way they want to have it. Persecuting whistleblowers, spying on journalists, lying about arming Mexican cartels. They did that too. Operation Fast and Furious. So you arm the most wicked devil Mexican cartels, drug cartels, with our guns, which are then ultimately used on our Border Patrol agents. All by design. Order out of chaos. And, Okay, so let me just start over. Persecuting whistleblowers, spying on journalists, lying about Army, Mexican cartels, and numerous other Justice Department actions have also been described as extreme by lawmakers and critics. Of course, humanity would be much better served by a White House summit focusing on extremism in government, which continues to grow in the United States and across the world and represents a far greater threat to safety, well-being, and liberty than terrorists ever could. Well, the terrorists could be really bad, but then again, our government's greasing the skids for them to do what they're getting ready to do, and we're going to get into that later. Instead, though, under the guise of battling global extremism, governments are in reality plotting to wage even more war on national sovereignty and the rights of citizens. As the Founding Fathers advised, the American people should reject the temptation to surrender their liberty in exchange for illusions of safety. If they do not, in the end, Americans will be left with neither. Okay, so that was that report. Let's continue on here on the same line of thinking here. And this one is from CNN, and it's entitled "Source Says Terror Cells Have Been Activated in France. French law enforcement officers have been told to erase their social media presence and to carry their weapons at all times because terror sleeper cells have been activated over the last 24 hours in the country." A French police source who attended a briefing Saturday told CNN terror analyst Samuel Laurent told them that. Okay. And then another man, Almidi, a suspect killed Friday during a deadly kosher meat market hostage siege, has made several phone calls about targeting police officers in France, according to the source. It was one of a flurry of developments Saturday, including reporting in a French-language magazine that brothers Sharif and Saoud Kouachi had been under watch by the French. But despite the red flags, authorities lost interest in them. These are the guys that supposedly shot those people. Okay, I say supposedly because there was some other evidence indicating maybe that didn't happen. I don't know. I know one thing, though. Islam is bent on doing that very thing. Okay, so even if it was a false flag, Islam makes no bones about that is exactly what they want to do and will do when given the proper opportunity. Again, I provide the Google link below, or listener actually did, of all of them holding up these signs in the streets and all of the things they're openly, blatantly saying that no other religion on the planet could get away with saying other than Islam. Because it holds a very special place in Satan's black heart. And therefore he protects it like no other religion on the planet. That's what I see pretty much. Some Bible verses to kind of counterbalance this garbage that we're getting into. Psalm 27 verse 1, "The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the strength of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid?" So you focus in on the Lord Jesus Christ, no matter how dark it may appear outwardly. So Isaiah 41:10, "Fear thou not, for I am with thee. Be not dismayed, for I am thy God. I will strengthen thee, yea, I will help thee. Yea, I will uphold thee with the right hand of my righteousness." And these are good verses to commit to memory as well. Deuteronomy 31:6, "Be strong and of good courage. Fear not, be not afraid of them. For the Lord thy God, he is he that doth goeth with thee. He will not fail thee, nor forsake thee." Psalm 56:3-4, "What time I am afraid, I will trust in thee. In God will I praise his word. In God I have put my trust. I will not fear what flesh can do unto me." So just good verses to, you can print them out, commit them to memory, these types of things. Because the information, unfortunately, just keeps getting darker pretty much every study. And this 2015 is probably going to shape up to be a real linchpin year. I mean, if it wasn't, I'd be amazed regarding just a lot of the agendas that are afoot. I'll be putting out a newsletter pretty soon on just all of the things that a lot of the alternative economists are saying about the collapse of the U.S. economy, the collapse of the dollar, gold and silver, stuff like that. And a lot of, there's so many, and they're all pretty much saying the same thing, and for this year. So let's go further here, and the next report is entitled 3,000 Moderate Rebels Defect to ISIS Imagine that. U.S. is preparing 5,000 more. Reported along the peripheries of the Western media, it was reported recently that some 3,000 so-called moderate rebels of the Free Syrian Army had defected to the Islamic State, or ISIS. While not the first time the so-called moderates have crossed over openly to Al-Qaeda or ISIS, it is one of the largest crossovers that has occurred. Remember, at the end of the day, if you're Islamic, okay, and I get it, there's Shia, there's Sunni, and there's other divisive sects, but ultimately, at the end of the day, you're all on the same team. You're all under the banner of Islam. A lot of these, and I've predicted this in the past, are going to start putting down and setting aside their differences. This is a great example of that. Okay? Setting aside their differences. These so-called moderate rebels who were supposed to be fighting ISIS. No. Now they've yoked up with them. Now they've joined them. They must have set aside some differences. I mean, had to happen in order for that to happen. I have predicted for a long time that you're going to see more and more of that. Hey, the moderate rebels want to be on the winning team. And you know what? The moderate ones are not really viewed as things get more radicalized in Islam, they're not going to be viewed as desirable. You better get on board, in other words, okay, with Islam. You better get radicalized, or you'll find yourself dead. They'll kill you. Okay, and we're going to get into that a little bit more later, because there's going to be no room in the modern day Sharia Islamic Caliphate for people that are moderate. They're either going to have to get on board or die. Okay, so that's the way it's going to be with them, if this is allowed to play itself out. With them, these 3,000 fighters will bring weapons, cash, equipment, training provided to them by Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the United States, the UK, and perhaps most ironic in the wake of the recent terror attacks in Paris, France. France is another one that have trained them. Indeed, and these are the ones we've trained and funded. Okay, now they cross over and they go to ISIS. I believe it's all by design. You know, ISIS and Al-Qaeda's ranks continue to swell amid this insidious network of terror laundering that is only set to grow. Before this brigade-sized defection, several other vetted moderate rebel groups, armed by the U.S. in particular, have openly pledged allegiance to Al-Qaeda. The most notorious incident was when the terror group Harakat Hazam, who was provided anti-tank TOW missiles from the U.S., openly pledged allegiance to Al-Qaeda's Syrian franchise, Al-Nusra. Al-Nusra then assumed possession of the TOW missiles, using them allegedly in a successful campaign in Syria's Idlib province. The Daily Beast would report on this event in its September 2014 article entitled Al-Qaeda Plotters in Syria Went Dark, U.S. Spies Say. The International Business Times would claim in its article entitled Syria, Al-Nusra Jihadists Capture U.S. TOW Anti-Tank Missiles from Moderate Rebels that weaponry supplied by the U.S. to moderate Syrian rebels was feared to have fallen into the hands of the jihadist militants affiliated with Al-Qaeda, who we've also openly funded and sponsored, after clashes between rival groups. I mean, we're funding and training both sides. We're funding and training the moderates. We're funding and training Al-Qaeda, ISIS, you name it. So, you know, it's all by design. We're doing all this. When moderates appear inevitably destined for the ranks of ISIS, and with the U.S. weapons falling into Al-Qaeda's hands, along with entire brigade-sized defections taking place, the last thing in the world any logical person would expect is for the U.S. to prepare another brigade-sized army to arm, fund, train, and turn loose inside of Syria. But that is precisely what the U.S. is planning to do. So we're creating this. It's already a monster, okay? Islam's already a monster. It's always been a monster from its inception. But what we're doing is we're taking something that should be like a brush fire, and we are throwing gasoline all over it and turning it into a raging forest fire. Ultimately, to bring that order, the New World Order, out of chaos. Ultimately, to bring us into World War III. And again, I've been saying this for years. About this whole scenario. Doesn't mean I think I'm Mr. Smarty Pants. It's just that it's becoming more and more obvious this is how it's going to go down. And then you have the movies that come out like American Sniper, and anyone that's evidently been to see it, you know, and I didn't see it. I try not to go to any movies, but support Hollywood. But you know, they're saying that it's going to absolutely show you the true evil of Islam, and get you really fired up behind our military, ready, even though we're also funding. Listen, I'm the first one that'll say this needs to be stopped. You cannot go around killing, beheading, slaying innocent people, little children, setting women on fire, generally mutilating little girls and your wives, doing all of this unbelievable, heinous garbage, the pedophilia that goes on, the bestiality that exists within Islam. You can't you can't have that and just have that unchecked and not have anything pushing back against that. It has to be stamped out. So I'm not saying that it shouldn't be fought, but when you have the New World Order and our American government in particular funding both sides, our own troops and Islam, there's a serious problem there. Okay? Really serious problem. I think we'd all agree to that. So let's go further here. Okay, so this Stars and Stripes would report, which is a military newspaper, would report in November 17, 2014, their article was entitled, "Agreement Reached for U.S. to Train Syrian Rebels in Turkey." So now, officials say the initial round of training would produce 5,000 trained Free Syrian Army rebels within about a year. Saudi Arabia in September agreed to host the training of the moderate Syrian rebels. Oh, just like the 3,000 moderate Syrian rebels that now just joined ISIS? And they're doing this in Turkey? Turkey's not exactly known for its moderate Islam stance. They're pretty radical, okay? So this is just more of, oh, wow, we can't believe that happened. You know, we thought they were going to be good boys and fight on the side of righteousness and go against ISIS. And looky here, they all converted. Oh, they all went over to the enemy's side. Well, we trained the enemy too, so who cares? You know, now it's going to happen even quicker. Now we're even going to get what we want to get out of this even faster, because they'll have a way bigger army and way more manpower and way more weaponry. And, you know, it's working out good for Satan. He must be beaming ear to ear for all this. So let's go further here. This is just unbelievable. For the U.S. already, plausible deniability is impossible with revelations as early as 2007, exposing America's desire to use Al-Qaeda as a proxy military force, with Harakat Hazam turning over U.S.-supplied anti-tank TOW missiles to Al-Qaeda, and now an entire brigade-sized defection of the so-called Free Syrian Army fighters to ISIS. What besides disaster could befall America's new brigade, this new 5,000 free-trained Syrian Army whatever members? What besides disaster could befall America's new brigade? It plans to start in training this spring. So I'm sure they'll all end up on the side of ISIS there as well. So let's see where we're at here on time. And I have a new recorder here. And I can't record quite as long as I used to, but the quality should be a lot better because it's in an MP3 format. And I don't have to do any conversions. So I am looking at where I want to stop here. I'm going to go ahead and stop here. And we will go to part 2 next. So God bless you and see you in part 2.